Hi there, my name's Jonathan McKnight. I'm the Director of Operations for Momentum 360, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Matterport Pro2 camera. Let's get started. The Matterport Pro2 came out in 2017, obviously manufactured by Matterport themselves. It superseded the original Matterport Pro, which is no longer for sale, and you can't really get them used anymore, although sometimes they pop up from time to time. They are also more prevalent than the Matterport Pro2 Lite. It's really important to know that the Matterport Pro2 has really been a standalone product all its own. Even with the Matterport Pro3 out, which I hear is a great camera, the Matterport Pro2 still holds its own. Again, manufactured in 2017, this camera is still widely in use for a lot of projects. It's also important to take this into consideration relative to the ecosystem that the camera is operating in. When you're using a Pro2, you need to have a Matterport subscription in order to actually use the camera. When the Pro2 first came out in 2017, they were over $5,000 just for the base package. Today, you can get high quality, mint condition cameras from companies like Matterfix.io, which are phenomenal companies. Mike does a great job and is a really solid option for getting a high quality, used Pro2 camera. They have a multi-point inspection system, and frankly, I couldn't recommend them enough. I've done business with Mike a couple times, and really stand-up product, whether you're using him as a service provider or as somebody who can sell you a quality camera. The Pro2s themselves are great cameras. They are a very versatile 360 platform. You can get creative with it if you want to, although you are relatively stuck to the confines of the Matterport ecosystem. Now, luckily, you're able to take 360 panoramic images inside of Matterport and export those as 360 panos, leaving behind the 3D data. This is great news for 3D Vista and Cloud Pano and everyone else who has invested into a Pro2. It's also a very valid way of transferring tours from Matterport to other virtual tour hosting platforms, but I'll get into that in a different video. Right now, the Matterport Pro2 is our main point of focus. It's important to realize that these cameras are versatile for basically any industry, but unfortunately, sometimes Matterport tours are sold to the wrong clients. This is often the biggest mistake I see in people who are either selling or buying virtual tours. They get the wrong type of tour for their business. So what do I mean exactly by that? Well, let's say you have a really high-end, nice facility like a school or a university. You want to show it off and you want to do it with the very best that's available. So you get a Matterport tour, and why not? A 3D tour has more features and more versatility than, say, a 360 tour. But unfortunately, what most people don't realize is that 3D tours are fairly well designed for architectural purposes. They're great at marketing, but they're not really designed for that. And the cost to maintain and generate a Matterport virtual tour reflects this. It's really important to consider what type of tour you're getting and what your use case is. If you want something relatively long-term, something that you plan on using for many years, you're going to want something that has a lower hosting option. And that, in my personal opinion, is Cloud Pano. Zach Calhoun and Clayton Rothschild do fantastic over there with maintaining a high quality product that's able to give people the virtual tour experience without the excess cost and the overall features per se that are available in a 3D system. Cloud Pano and other services like 3D Vista, which I know lesser about, are perfect examples of idealized 360 virtual tour hosting platforms. But back to Matterport. What about it? Is it worth your time? All these years on, about 6 years on, is the Pro2 still a worthwhile camera to get? Absolutely. The Matterport Pro3 is a fantastic camera, but with the 7,000, near 7,000, I'll probably edit the price right here, entry point, it can be kind of rough for most people to get into. Considering that you can get really high quality used Matterport Pro2s for often under 2,000 bucks, it makes justifying a Pro3 pretty hard, especially when you consider that Matterport, as of recently, has started competing directly against those who have bought their camera systems. Traditionally, for the longest time, Matterport did two things. They made cameras and they hosted virtual tours. Recently, they've gotten to a third area of business, which is being the middleman for the tour providers themselves. This is done very much to upset the user base, the people who are paying thousands of dollars for these cameras, and has done relatively little for Matterport's actual stock price. But what about the company as a whole? How viable is it to begin with? Well, ultimately, Matterport stock is hovering at about all-time lows. But I still think that it's a good and reasonable company to invest in. There aren't any real solid competitors that are able to do what Matterport does at scale. With that being said, Matterport also makes a lot of foolish decisions as a company. Anything from banking heavily at Silicon Valley Bank, although I have heard that they banked at other institutions, thankfully, from competing directly against the Matterport service providers that have invested their time and reputations into the platforms themselves. The best thing that Matterport could do is to stick to their guns. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad platform to invest in. As a matter of fact, I do highly recommend it for anybody who's looking to get into virtual tour platforms. But you need to make sure you understand what you're selling. Like a really good example would be that Matterport tours have ongoing hosting fees. You need to make sure that you have agreements in place ahead of time. Otherwise, you'll end up in a really locked up place where you need to make your Matterport bill and you may not be able to if you don't have the revenue, the cash flow coming in. And you're gonna have a lot of upset people wondering where the heck their tours went. We'll get into another video about how you can migrate your videos from Matterport virtual tours over to other services like CloudPano, which would be my recommendation, at the very least, to have a backup. My name is Jonathan McKnight. I'm the Director of Operations for Momentum 360. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you on the next one.